Ark by Jarl Szydlow. So this is the next selection in the Wife's Wildcard series that me and the wife are doing. She went through and found a very obscure book in my library that I didn't really have on my TBR. After finishing this book, I've looked everywhere. I have not found a written review on Goodreads or Amazon or anyone's blog or anywhere. The most amount of information I've been able to find about this book is on the author's website. And this is a pseudonym for a female author named Mary Vigliante. And I realized later I had this other book from her called The Colony. Now, in 1978, she published her first novel, which was The Ark. And the publishers of this novel didn't think that Mary Szydlowski, which was her real name, was a good name to put on the cover of the book and try to sell copies. So they came up with this pseudonym, Jarl Szydlow. Probably butchered the title. But she later went on and wrote some books under her maiden name, Mary Vigliante. And it seems like she's written a lot of other genre-style books besides science fiction later in her career. So this is a wild book. There's some things that I want to talk about in this book that will be spoilers, so I'm going to put some timestamps and I'll have a whole spoiler section. But leading up to that, I'll give you an idea of what this one's about. I'll go over my pros and cons, then we'll get into the spoiler section, and then I'll do a conclusion, kind of wrap it up, and show you what my wife picked out in the next selection of the Wife's Wildcard picks. So, and I'll warn you when we get to that spoiler section, but if you read the back here, this talks about like a generational ship. They're looking for a planet and something goes awry on the way. That's kind of all you get from the back cover there. And when we start off on this book, so that ends up kind of being about the midway point. When you start off reading, you're introduced to this character named Altur, A-L-T-U-R. And I would say the first half of this book is almost all omniscient exposition. There's very little character work. There's very little dialogue. Everything is just told to you. You're inside. You bounce from one person's thoughts to the next. It's a very unique way to tell the first half of this story. You don't see it very often, and it could be a negative for a lot of people. But this character, we find we're on a planet. We don't know if we're in our solar system or a different solar system somewhere else in the galaxy. And there seems to be about 150,000 people on this planet, and they all worship this guy Altur like a messiah. And he is a egotistical, malevolent, evil ruler, and just over the top. The type of person that if he's coming up with some scheme and he wants to confide in a certain person, he'll interview 3 people, he'll pick the person he wants, and the first task that person will have is to murder the other 2. It's that kind of over-the-top stuff. And as he starts aging, he realizes that he's probably going to die. He knows he's mortal. And so he sets all the scientists on this planet to try to cure this mortality and make him immortal. As he goes on through his life, he realizes they're not going to do it in time, and they're able to freeze him in this pod. And he sets up this elaborate system so no one could come along and murder him while he's in this frozen sleep. And they come up with this idea that he takes a very close relative that resembles him, and this new Altur version of him is going to pose as him on the planet. So everyone will think he's still alive. And then we kind of have a time jump, and we get to Altur 20. So there's been 20 iterations of Altur. The population is still not aware that this is happening. They still are worshiping this guy as their messiah. They think he's immortal. And there's some climate change that starts happening on the planet, and the scientists realize that their star is getting ready to go supernova, and they have to evacuate the planet. Otherwise, everyone's going to die. So they come up with this idea to get 3 generational life ships, load everybody aboard, and go seek a new world. Now, there's some things that happen that I'll get into in the spoilers in a minute, but we end up with one ship on its way to find a new planet, kind of like our cover art here shows. And that kind of takes you up to the synopsis on the back. Now, there's some things that come up. There's a lot of questions like, are they going to find the planet? What's going to happen with all these people that are on the ship? They did figure out a way to evacuate a lot more people by freezing them in pods. And you're not sure what's going to go on with them. And then ultimately you're wondering what's happening with this Messiah that you've really grown to hate in the first half of this book. And so there's a lot of questions that are set up, and some pros and cons before I get to the spoilers. The pros are just some of this mystery around this, and it's definitely a plot-heavy book. You're really wondering where she's going to go with this, and I will say you will never guess. Now, the cons, the first half of this book, like I said, is almost entirely exposition. There's very little dialogue. There's very little character development. The second half of the book, we do have a couple characters, and it reads a little bit more like a novel. But some of these things she's doing, this evil character, are way over the top. It's not, she doesn't waste any time telling you about this kind of stuff. She doesn't sugarcoat any of it. It's just thrown right in your lap, and you just have to deal with it if you're reading this book. So that could put a lot of people off. And you know, when I say it's over the top, it gets crazy, but it's all there kind of for the purpose of the story she's trying to tell. So if you're intrigued enough and you want to go try to find this book, I would, skip over the spoiler section that we're getting into now, and you can go to the conclusion. I'll have some timestamps, like I said. Okay, so now we'll get into spoilers. This character, Alter, he is super evil, and he made sure that everyone that came after him had these same kind of qualities. So when they were loading everyone up on these ships, they decided that the new leader, you could call him Alter 21, he decides he's going to be on the first ship. No one even knows he's really the controller of the Destiny at this point. And he wants Alter 20 to be on the final ship, like the captain should go down with the planet and make you look good. You'll be on the last ship that leaves. And as the first ship leaves, they nuke the planet and basically kill everybody that's left. So this whole humanity, whatever you want to call the people that are left from this planet, we're down to about 50,000 people. Most of them are frozen in the cargo hold of the ship, and there's about 1,500 people that are basically just there to get the ship to the next planet. They're gonna, procreate, and this will be a generational ship. But their whole goal is to get the other people to this planet, where they'll probably murder these people that got them there once they arrive. That's kind of the thoughts that are in your head. So there's a big time jump again, and we're about 2,000 years later. This ship has been traveling through space for like 2,000 years. And we meet this couple who are part of this generational crew. And it's pretty comical. The women are basically there just to give birth, and the men are there to do all the smart thinking things. And even in this character's head, he's thinking about his wife and how her brain isn't functioning because she's a female, basically. It's pretty funny, especially when you consider this was written by a female author. But the tables get flopped here in a minute, because some asteroids end up striking the ship. They're getting close to the planet, but some asteroids strike the ship, and it ends up contaminating something, and a lot of people start dying. And our female character here, she's the only one that figures it out that this asteroid has contaminated the food supply. And it's funny because then the husband, he's thinking, oh, maybe she isn't so dim-witted, she's the only one that figured this out. And all the rulers on this ship who are left just basically elevate her to the commander now. She's the only one that figured this out. Let her make all the decisions. It's pretty funny. It happens really quick. But They figure this out in time, and there's enough survivors left to pilot the ship and still get to the planet, but it's basically ruined their food supply. So they got to figure something out. So this husband and wife, they go up to this area that was forbidden to go into, and they said, we got to go down there and we got to check it out. We're on our last option. Maybe there's something down here that we can live off of. They get down there and they find corpses everywhere. When this asteroid struck, some of these frozen bodies got knocked down and the pods opened, and there's just gore and all this everywhere. They're not sure what this is. They think it's like a separate civilization that's been going on this whole time. And so they keep kind of working their way through the ship, and they find this, they kind of trigger this holographic image that basically explains everything to them, that this group was just there to get these frozen people, the only people we're saving, to this planet, and then they'll be dealt with later. And so they're, of course, they're horrified by all of these revelations that they've just had, and they go up and explain it to everybody. So now they kind of know the purpose of what this mission and what their purpose was, but it still hasn't solved the food problem. So the husband, he starts thinking, and he goes, there's a lot of meat down there in frozen storage, and we can just eat that. And they go through a quick little debate before they all realize, yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to start eating these frozen bodies. They were going to kill us as soon as we made it onto this planet, so let's just start eating them. And that's what they do. They turn into complete cannibals. And it gets so crazy and over the top. At one point, they're sitting down for a meal with their family, and their little daughter, she really loves toes. So they save all the toes for her and give her the toes. It's just like, it goes full cannibalism in this book. And I definitely did not see that coming. And so they end up making it to the planet in just enough time. They've basically eaten all the bodies that were left. They're only down to a few. And they find this planet is perfect. There's plants and animals, and they're gonna be able to live here very peacefully. And they've thwarted the plans of their overlords, basically. And so, as they land on the planet, they're gonna have one big last cannibalistic feast. And our main female character, she kind of goes in to harvest some of the last few bodies that were left. And she makes it to this last tomb, this very elaborate tomb, and it looks different. And she notices the name on there. And she opens it, and Alter, the original Alter from the beginning, this original Messiah, he comes out of this cryogenic stasis. And he's a little foggy at first, but he's been in there for over 2,000 years. All of a sudden, he's able to move, and his thoughts are coming back to him, and he realizes something happened. And at the same time, she's like, why is this guy alive? I was just going to, butcher a frozen corpse, and we were going to feast on that. And so she ends up kind of like shanking him, killing him, as her daughter comes in. She's like, oh, no, don't worry. I'm getting the meat. I'll be right out. We got some more toes for you. And so they go to the surface of the planet. They do their final little feast, and that's the end of the story. So, like I said, this was entertaining. I will say that. I had no idea where this one was going. It went into some very wild places. I'm not sure I recommend this one, but it was one that I really wanted to talk about because no one has talked about this one online. I haven't found anything. So I'm going to be the first Goodreads review. I'll probably do some maybe a little spoiler section in there too. But, that's going to do it for the spoiler section. Now, I'll do a wrap up here. This is this was a very interesting read. I will say that my wife chose. Not the best book that she's picked, but one that I will remember for a very long time. And the book she picked next is A World of Trouble by Robert E. Toomey Jr. I don't know much about Toomey. I think this is the only novel he wrote. And I think he wrote a couple short stories. So I'm really excited to get to this obscure title as well. So just look for this read coming up in the near future. And thanks for watching.